the grandest ballroom in Paris, dripping with gold and crystal. This is the home of the Fontaine family. A suave doctor in a tailored suit, Dr. Dubois, clings his champagne flute. To modern medicine, he announces, and to the complete, miraculous recovery of Charles Fontaine. Polite applause ripples through the crowd. But across the room, hidden in the shadows, a small, quiet woman named Marites watches. She's the real healer. The man of the hour, Charles Fontaine, who is sitting upright for the first time in a year, raises his own glass. But he isn't looking at the celebrated French doctor. His eyes are locked on Marites, with an intensity that could shatter crystal. The applause dies as he lowers his glass, a storm brewing in his eyes. The miracle was real. The man taking credit for it was not. So how did we get here? How did this quiet healer find herself in a Parisian palace, watching a fraud claim her victory? It all started 1 month earlier, at a time of absolute despair. The Fontaine family wasn't just rich. They were the kind of dynasty whose name was whispered in the same breath as real-life giants like LVMH and L'Oreal. They were practically Parisian royalty. Their home in the 16th arrondissement was less a house and more a palace, a fortress of power and privilege. But even the highest walls can't keep tragedy out. The patriarch, Charles Fontaine, the titan who had built the empire, was dying. The diagnosis was progressive muscular atrophy, a rare and ruthless motor neuron disease. The world's best doctors, with resins as polished as the Fontaine silver, had all said the same thing, their voices dripping with practiced pity. Incurable, irreversible. We can only manage his comfort. A family that fought solutions and silenced bravos. This was an insult. Yet here was an enemy they couldn't buy off. Charles's world had shrunk from the entire globe to a single, lavish bedroom. The man whose commands once moved markets was now a prisoner in his own skin. His children, Helene and Etienne, took it in completely different ways. Helene, the elder, fell into a frantic search for a cure. She flew in specialists from all over the world, each visit a new cycle of hope followed by crushing disappointment. Etienne, the pragmatic son and heir, saw it differently. He loved his father, but he was also the guardian of the family legacy. While Helen chased miracles, Etienne managed to decline, crafting press releases about a dignified battle and preparing for the inevitable. He accepted the doctor's verdict. The problem was unsolvable. The mansion grew quiet and suffocating. All their money felt like a useless pile of gold that couldn't buy a single healthy nerve cell. They hit the limit of what modern science could offer. It was in this crushing silence that a new voice emerged. It didn't come from a fancy specialist, but from the heart of the household. Maria, the Filipino head housekeeper of over 30 years, had watched it all. She'd cared for Charles since his children were small, and his decline was a personal heartbreak for her. One evening, seeing Helene staring into space, Maria took a chance. Clutching her apron, she crossed a line she hadn't crossed in 3 decades of silent, loyal service. "Mademoiselle Helene," she began, her voice a whisper, "forgive me, but in my country, in the Philippines, when the doctors can do no more, there are others we turn to." Helene looked up, annoyed and exhausted. "What are you talking about, Maria?" "We have healers," Maria said, her courage growing. "They are called albulario. They use methods passed down for generations. Herbs, prayers, a healing touch called hilot." Just then, Etienne walked in, scoffing from the doorway. "Healers? Doria, are you suggesting we bring a witch doctor into this house? For a neurodegenerative disease? That's absurd." "It is not witchcraft, Monsieur Etienne," Doria replied, her gaze steady. "It is a different kind of knowledge. My own grandmother couldn't walk. An albulario came with oils and herbs and massage. She walked again. I saw it. Superstitious fantasies," Etienne snapped. "If the best minds in modern medicine can't help him, no one can." End of discussion. But Helene didn't dismiss it. She looked at the genuine belief in Maria's eyes. They had tried every logical, scientific, and expensive option. All that was left was the absurd, the unthinkable. Who's this healeth? Helene asked, ignoring her brother's frustrated glare. Her name is Maritz, Maria said. She is my cousin. She isn't famous. She helps those who have been given up. They say her hands are guided. Etienne threw his hands in the air. This is insane. Helene, think of our reputation. The press would crucify us. We'd look like fools. I don't care about the press. Helene shot back, a fire in her eyes Etienne hadn't seen in months. I care about Papa. The doctors gave up. Are we supposed to just watch him die? If there's a 1 in a billion chance, should we take it? That night, a crisis sealed the deal. Charles struggled to breathe, his body rigid with silent agony. In the cold light of dawn, Helene walked into her brother's office. I booked a flight, she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. From Manila to Paris, she'd be here in 2 days. Maritz arrived at Charles de Gaulle Airport with just a single woven bag. She was a small woman in her late 50s, her face kind, her hands calloused. When the uniformed chauffeur, used to greeting sheiks and celebrities, saw her, he almost walked right past. He was looking for a doctor, and this unassuming woman just didn't fit the part. Her arrival at the mansion was a quiet clash of universes. She stepped from the gray Parisian day into a world of blinding opulence, but she seemed neither intimidated nor impressed. Helene and Etienne were waiting. Helene offered an awkward handshake. Dr. Maritz. Welcome. Maritz simply nodded, her eyes gentle. I am not a doctor, she said softly. I am Maritz. Etienne stood back, arms crossed, radiating skepticism. This was their last hope? He felt a wave of embarrassment. To manage the situation, he'd already hired a respectable French physician, Dr. Dubois, to oversee things and contain the damage to their reputation. The master suite looked like a luxury hospital ward, with beeping monitors and an Ford drip. In the middle of it all lay Charles Fontaine, a ghost in his own life. Maritz walked right past the machines. She went to the bed and simply took Charles's hand, her warm, firm grip a world away from the cold touch of nurses. She closed her eyes, her lips moving in a silent prayer. Watching from the door, Etienne rolled his eyes. This was exactly the mystical nonsense he expected. Maritz opened her eyes and turned to Helene. The room is cold, she said, meaning the energy. Please turn off the machines. The beeping distracts the spirit. Turn them off, Etienne burst in. That equipment is monitoring his vitals. The spirit cannot heal when it's trapped by the sound of its own dying, Maritz replied simply. Helene hesitated, then made a choice. Do it, she told the nurse. The rhythmic beeping stopped, and a profound silence filled the room. Maritz then opened her woven bag. Inside were not sterile tools, but cloth pouches of dried leaves and roots, and bottles of fragrant oils. The room filled with the earthy scent of camphor and ginger, the smell of the forest floor, completely alien in the sterile environment. She began her work. This was Hillet, a traditional Filipino massage meant not for relaxation, but for unblocking energy pathways. Her thumbs pressed deep into atrophied muscles. As she worked, she chanted softly a low, rhythmic oracion or prayer in a mix of an old dialect and sacred phrases. To Etienne, it was pagan gibberish. To Helene, it was strangely hypnotic. That evening, the consultant, Dr. Dubois, arrived. He was handsome, charming, and utterly condescending. So, he said to Maritz, I understand you're performing some folk remedies. What exactly do you believe you're accomplishing? I am helping the body remember how to live, Maritz answered. Dubois chuckled. My dear woman, this is progressive muscular atrophy. The neural pathways are dying. No amount of massage will change that. I'm here to ensure no harm is done and manage the patient's comfort with proper pharmaceuticals. Any improvements you see will be a result of my medical management. The next few days fell into a routine. Barites used heated banana leaves to draw out the coldness and prepared herbal decoctions. She performed a diagnostic ritual called tawas, melting candle wax into water to understand the spiritual imbalance. Then, on the third day, something happened. Helene was holding her father's hand and felt it, a tiny flicker in his index finger. A response. She ran to get her brother, but by the time he arrived, the movement was gone. Helene, you're exhausted, he said. It was just a muscle spasm. She knew what she'd felt. The next day, Charles's breathing seemed easier. That afternoon, for the first time in months, he made a sound, a low, voluntary moan. When Dr. Dubois visited, Helene told him the news excitedly. He smiled. Excellent. As I predicted, the new medication is working. We're on the right track. He made a note on his chart, completely ignoring merits. Etienne seized on the explanation. See? It's science. We just needed the right doctor. But Helene wasn't so sure. She saw the life return to her father's eyes not after a pill, but after Barites held his head and whispered to him. One world was loud, confident, and taking all the credit. The other was quiet, humble, and actually performing the miracle. The progress, once it started, became undeniable. Within a week, Charles could move his head. By the 10th day, he whispered his first word, Helene. His daughter burst into tears. Etienne, however, was busy spinning a different story. Guided by Dr. Dubois, he framed the recovery as a triumph of modern medicine. Dubois was a master of jargon, talking about optimizing neurotransmitter support and breakthrough palliative strategy. He was positioning himself as the architect of the miracle, with Etienne's full support. We have to control the narrative, Etienne told Helene. This elevates the Fontaine name. Helene felt torn. She saw Marites massage her father's legs, and the next day, he'd twitch his toes. The connection was too direct to be a coincidence. But Marites herself remained outside the drama. Her focus was solely on the man in the bed, patiently coaxing his life force back. As Charles grew stronger, she started asking questions. The woman with the warm hands. Who is she? That's Marites, Papa, Helene would say. She's helping you. He would nod, a look of deep understanding in his eyes. He knew exactly where the healing was coming from. The day Charles stood up from his bed was monumental. Etienne had his phone out, recording while Dr. Dubois stood beside him, beaming like a proud father. This was the moment Etienne needed. He began planning a grand reception to debut the new Charles Fontaine and cement Dr. Dubois's reputation as a medical hero. The night of the party was pure Parisian glamour. Charles sat in a large armchair, looking remarkably healthy. Dr. Dubois was the man of the hour, soaking up congratulations. Then came the toast. Etienne raised his glass. My friends, he began, tonight is a night of miracles. Thanks to the visionary work of one man, a hero to our family. I ask you all to raise your glasses to Dr. Jean-Luc Dubois. The room burst into applause. Dr. Dubois stepped forward, the picture of humble triumph. To modern medicine, he declared. And that's when the carefully written script was torn to shreds. Charles Fontaine raised his hand. The room fell silent. He pushed himself up from his chair, standing tall and unaided. He didn't look at Dr. Dubois or Etienne. His eyes scanned the room until he found her Marites, half hidden near the service entrance. His voice was clear and filled with ire. The man you are applauding, he said, cutting through the silence, did nothing. A collective gasp went through the room. Dubois's smile melted. He did nothing but write invoices, Charles continued. He is a fraud and a vulture. He turned and pointed a steady finger on Marites. The person you should be thanking is that woman, he declared, his voice ringing with fury and gratitude. Her name is Marites. She is an albulario from the Philippines. She didn't use machines that beep. She used her hands. She used herbs from the earth. She used the knowledge of her ancestors. He looked around the stunned row. When all my wealth could not buy me a single breath, this woman, with nothing but a bag of leaves and the Spirit of God in her hands, gave me back my life. He then walked slowly across the marble floor, directly to Marat's. In front of the most powerful people in Paris, the great Charles Fontaine bowed a deep, profound bow of humility and respect. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "From the bottom of my soul, thank you." The silence in the ballroom was absolute. The unveiling had happened, but it wasn't the one anyone expected. The quiet, undeniable truth had just taken center stage. The fallout was swift. Dr. Dubois vanished from the social scene, his reputation destroyed. Etienne was forced into a long period of humility. His relationship with his father forever changed. He had been so busy managing perceptions that he missed the truth right in front of him. And Marat's? The next morning, she packed her single woven bag. Charles offered her a fortune, a blank check, a beautiful apartment, a foundation in her name. She gently refused it all. "The healing is not for sale," she explained. "It is a gift. It is given where it is needed. My work here is done." She accepted only the cost of her flight home. Helene drove her to the airport, the two women from opposite ends of the earth sharing a silent, powerful bond. The story of the Filipino healer became a quiet legend in Paris. It's a powerful reminder that wisdom doesn't always come from the loudest voice, and value isn't always shown by a price tag. Sometimes, the greatest power lies in the quiet confidence of tradition, in the humility of service, and in the hands of those who heal not for credit, but for kindness. Stories like this challenge what we think we know about strength, value, and healing. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing for more tales that uncover the extraordinary and the unexpected. And share this video with someone who believes in the power of hope and humility. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Has a quiet voice ever changed your world? Thanks for watching.